is a lot of times we come up with things that set us apart that are like expectations, like bare minimum expectations, like, well, high quality, responsive, I care about my people. But the way I see it is that if you can't have the opposite of it and have a successful business, it's a requirement. It's not a preference. Like, nobody wants a mean planner.
Hey there, everybody. I am back here. This is Eddie Babbage, founder of Timeline Genius and your host of the Wedding Industry Insider podcast. We've got another great episode. I'm here with my friend and longtime partner in crime, Heidi Thompson. Heidi is an author, speaker, and the founder of Evolve Your Wedding Business, where she specializes in business and marketing strategy for wedding professionals. Her expertise, both in business and marketing, has been featured in noteworthy media outlets like the Huffington Post, Social Media Examiner, Wedding Business Magazine, Wedding Wire World, and more. And Heidi is also the host of her own podcast, the Evolve Your Wedding Business podcast. Heidi, thank you for being here today. It's always such a pleasure to catch up with you and to chat with you.
Thank you for having me, my friend. I'm excited to be here.
Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, and I mean, it's funny. We've known each other now for years. We've done webinars together. You've been on the podcast before, and it's just always really a treat. I'm always better after I talk to you. I learned something, and I know that everybody listening today is going to be better after just kind of tuning in for this episode because, among other things, one thing that we talked about in the pre-interview is the sea of sameness and how to stand out. Something that you're seeing right now that is top of mind is that there are a lot of challenges in terms of growing your business, sustaining your business that start to arise when your business isn't standing out. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, for those that aren't as familiar with you and your background, would you mind just kind of giving an overview of your story and how you got to be where you currently are in our industry?
Sure. So I've had Evolve Your Wedding Business for the past, actually going on 12 years now. So it's been a minute of working with wedding professionals, helping them book more weddings, book more of the weddings that they want to have. Prior to that, I was a planner myself. I found my way into that when I was in college. I spent some time when I lived in the UK planning, but my day job was in marketing, and I loved marketing. I still love marketing. And I kind of thought that everybody else did too, but it turns out that's not necessarily the case. I started a wedding show over there where this was like 2011, 2012, like very squarely in the offbeat bride, rock and roll bride era. So nobody else was doing this. I saw the opportunity. I created this wedding show, and I spent a ton of time just helping the wedding pros that were exhibiting at the show make the most of it and do more with their marketing. And I realized, oh yeah, not everybody just is into this and reads marketing books because they find them interesting. And I have this opportunity to really kind of bridge these worlds of marketing in like every industry imaginable and the wedding industry, which I have always loved.
That's super cool, Heidi. And I know that everybody listening can attest to the fact that marketing is not something that all of us play at. You know, they say about our superpowers, like everybody has something that they're great at, that they're naturally just adept at. And because it's kind of easy and you have that affinity for it, you almost kind of take for granted that, wait, isn't it that way for everybody? But it's not. And I can say for me, one of the key sort of parts of my evolution as an entrepreneur, I was like the exact opposite. I was kind of like, oh, finance matters, right? Like I majored in math. I was like, that's something hard, concrete. I can get my head around marketing, whatever. But like at this point in my career, it's like, no, marketing is so important. So that's one of the reasons why I always like hanging out with you to get marketing pearls of wisdom bestowed. So let's talk. Let's get right into it here, Heidi. And I know this conversation is going to go because it always does when I catch up with you in a lot of interesting directions. But we were talking, and you said, Eddie, one of the things that I see when I look around right now, your ears always to the ground, is people are suffering from, I don't know what the disease could be or the affliction could be labeled, but it's like not standing out, right? Like blending into that sea of sameness. Tell me a little bit more to kind of get the conversation going about the problems that you're seeing and what you're observing in the market.
Yeah, so this year especially, I've seen a lot of people struggle with not getting enough leads, not getting enough of the right leads or quality leads, not getting bookings from those leads, getting ghosted, all of these things that happen that we see. I've seen them escalate. And among the businesses that I've seen them escalate with, I've noticed that isn't actually the issue. The issue is that you're not clearly standing out, so that what happens is it becomes a comparison game. And what is really important is to, and we can talk more about this, but like to put yourself in your own category so that you aren't in this constant comparison game. Because for so many couples, literally the only difference they see is price. That's it. So I think for a lot of us, we think like that's the motivation. And it is for some people. But if that's really the only differentiator that they're seeing, I mean, how else can they make that decision? So I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of people lose business based on that because the couples just don't see like why. Ultimately the question is, why should I book you instead of someone else?
Let me ask you this. How would you know, Heidi? How are you arriving at the sort of conclusion when you're seeing people get ghosted, when you're seeing these other sort of like telltale signs? How do you know to connect that back to this core issue of you're not standing out?
So in my membership, I do something once a month called a member makeover, where I review one member's website. I go through page by page,
Mm.
and it's kind of a teardown. Like, okay, what do you need to change in
Hmm.
order to get more conversions off of this website, in order to get more leads, in order to get more bookings? And something I've noticed time and time again is I could take the copy on this website and paste it onto a competitor's website and nobody would know the difference. And that's where I'm seeing the
Hello.
huge issue. And where like my gut is then like, hang on, let me go look at their website. And then
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah,
that's the
this
issue.
is it's the same. And for planners, it's the same language of around stress and saving time. And like, yes, those things are absolutely true,
Yeah.
but they don't make you stand out.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So I have a whole cascading set of questions here, but we'll start with this. You would think that nobody would be stepping into this bear trap. Now, obviously, we're wrong, and we know that people are stepping into this bear trap, and we'll get into the reasons and the ways to avoid the pitfall. But at first blush, you would think, wait a minute. The message is out. People say, be your true self. There's no other you but you. Lean into your authenticity. Like that message is out there. And yet, people are kind of like falling into this pitfall. Like, why do people kind of, because I think, Heidi, if you ask any planner, like, is it good to stand out in the marketplace, they're going to be like, of course, two thumbs up, yeah, definitely. So how is it that like everybody kind of knows that on some level, but we still find that it often happens that we step into this pitfall?
Part of it is you don't know how, and part of it is you can't see your own business objectively. So
Mm,
you might think you stand out, but
hmm.
if you ask some random person to tell you what's different about your business from another wedding planner, they can't.
Right.
So part of it's the objectivity, part of it is They just don't know how to get deeper than what they already have.
So that really naturally segues to the very next question, which is how. Like how, great if somebody's fortunate enough, Heidi, to be in your community and to get you to do that teardown, but you can't do that for everybody. There are too many people in the industry, too many people even listening to this interview. For those that don't have that luxury, how do they sort of do this sort of audit objectively? And what steps do they need to take? Concrete steps do they need to take to start standing out?
So the way I talk about it in a challenge that I do, a 5-day challenge with wedding professionals, is centered around the idea of the movie Legally Blonde. And in the beginning of Legally Blonde, you meet Elle Woods. She's like your classic president of her sorority. We know who Reese Witherspoon is in this movie. And her
I actually
boyfriend
never
breaks up
saw it,
with.
but I still
Oh
need.
my God.
Do I need to watch that? Is that one I
Yes.
need to
It's
take down?
it's
Okay, all right.
it's such a fun movie. And it's very much one of those rom-coms where boyfriend breaks up with her because he just got into Harvard and
Okay,
thinks she's too stupid for him because she's pink and bubbly. And she's
okay,
like, I'll show you.
okay,
I'm going to become the Harvard girl. She gets into Harvard. She also is in Harvard Law School because she is intelligent.
okay,
And she becomes the thing that he wants.
okay.
Now, lots of other things happen in the movie. And this is a terrible way to go about having a human relationship, but it's really good for the purposes of thinking about you and your ideal client. You want to become that exact thing that they want. So what happens is then
Mhm.
naturally, okay, what do they want? And I walk people through actually asking your best clients questions about, why did you book with me? What really stood out? Um, if you were going to refer your best friend to me, what would you tell them? So you
Mm.
start to understand why they chose you. And really that's what all of this centers around, is why. Why did they make this decision? So that you can present yourself as that exact perfect thing that they're looking for. And you can't do that if you don't talk to them.
So I love what you're saying, Heidi, and I'm going to ask a sort of slightly philosophical, but actually I think very practical question. Okay, so we hear these two things that at first blush almost seem to be in conflict with each other. And the two things are, on the one hand, be your authentic self. Like find that true thing about you, that because there's nobody else that has your constellation of passions and values and interests, and have the courage to put that out into the world, right? And to push past that fear of, well, what if people don't really like the real me? Like put that real you boldly and bravely on display, and it will be the beacon that attracts the ideal clients, etc. Right? So on the one hand we hear that, on the other hand we hear, and I love that, by the way, I think that's really powerful and beautiful. On the other hand, we hear something that's also powerful and beautiful, which is, and I feel this one down in the depths of my soul, it's not about you. Like, it's about the person you're serving. If you want to be a good marketer, you need to be inside the mind and heart and life of the people that you're serving, and you need to appeal to them. And that's kind of what you're saying. But again, those almost seem to be in conflict. Like, am I supposed to be the person that my clients want or that I think will attract the people I'm trying to serve? Or am I supposed to be my true self and come what may? Like, this is who I am. Like, how do you reconcile those two principles?
This is exactly why I use Legally Blonde as a reference, because she was always so smart. She
And
was always absolutely brilliant. She studied for like a week and she got the highest score possible on her LSAT, and she got into Harvard Law with a major in fashion. Nothing about her changed. She
mm,
just changed how she was being perceived, that she was able to do a certain thing. So I certainly don't think you should change yourself,
Right.
but we also lack objectivity.
Right.
We don't know why our clients love us. And typically, when we ask, we find out things that are like, really? Like, okay, that's just how I think, or that's just how I work, or that's just what I do. So, to give you an example, there was a planner that I worked with, and she was going through this where she was in a huge slump. She wasn't getting really very many leads. And she went through this process of talking to, well, first identifying, but then talking to her best clients. And she found that pretty much all of them were Indian couples, or one person in the couple was Indian. And her marketing was entirely centered around saving time, saving stress, all of these typical planner things. What her people told her was, oh, no, that's not why we hired you. We hired you because the problem that they wanted solved was they didn't want their wedding to be a carbon copy of their sister's wedding and their brother's wedding and their cousins' weddings and their friends from college. And they wanted to bring in cultural components of, their Indian culture, or if, they're from two different cultures, both of their cultures. They wanted to mix it up. They wanted to make it theirs. They wanted to make something really unique. And this was already something she was doing. These were clients she had already worked with. But once she changed the focus of her marketing to basically, I am the go-to person for you if you are having a multicultural wedding or an Indian wedding and you don't want it to be like your sisters and you don't want it to be like your brothers. And then people were like, yes, please take my money.
I love that, Heidi. I love that. And you know what? It really resonates with me. I think anybody that's been listening to this podcast for long enough knows that, like, the biggest, most important and profound lesson I've learned as an entrepreneur is this notion of it's not about me, it's about how do I serve. And that has all sorts of implications, from how you're doing your work to what you're doing, the service or product that you're providing in the market, and obviously also to the marketing. To know, like, for me, I'll give you an example with Timeline Genius. For years, I was always just front and center. It's about the fact that it saves you time, right? And I'm truly just mentioning this for, like, obviously Timeline Genius is the business that I know best because it's what I've been doing for the last 11 years. But what I discovered when I started talking to customers was they're like, oh, Eddie, yeah, 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 it totally saves me time. Yes, that's a big, huge deal. That's awesome. But if I had to name the one thing, it would be that everything's all in one place for my wedding day, right? And it's like, and if you really kind of dig into that, I love what you're encouraging people to do. Like, talk to your customers, especially the ideal clients that you've had, and really unpack why it is that they booked you and what they loved about working with you. I just think that's gold. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And to your point, it wasn't like you were being inauthentic to the business or the
Absolutely.
product. You were
100%.
just basically shifting what direction the spotlight was
That's right.
pointed in. You just
Yeah.
pointed it at a
That's
different facet.
Yeah, the thought I had as you were talking, Heidi, is you're right. Like, we are who we are at our core, and our business in many respects is what it is. But, and I don't think there's anything that's like lacking in authenticity about this fact. The reality is, like, when it comes to your branding and your marketing, you do want to be intentional about, like, the way you're crafting that image, that identity, the way you're crafting the messaging that's going out. But like you're saying, it doesn't mean that I'm changing anything about who I am necessarily. It just means I'm being smart about the message that I'm putting out there.
Yeah. It's just, you're just directing it at the part of what you do that your clients care about most. And yes, something we talked about last time I ran this challenge that I mentioned is a lot of times we come up with things that set us apart that are like expectations, like bare minimum expectations. Like, Well, high quality, responsive. I care about my people. But the way I see it is that if you can't have the opposite of it and have a successful business,
I love
it's
it.
a requirement. It's not a preference. Like nobody wants a mean planner.
Heidi, have you ever seen the Chris Rock stand up where he like starts like condemning the dads that like brag about the things they're supposed to do? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Where he's like guys will walk around and be like, I take care of my kids. He's like, that's not a big deal. You're supposed to take care of your kids, you know? It's like you don't get a medal for that, you know? Like I
Yeah.
love I mean that's good comedy when you take something like that's true and but we kind of don't necessarily think about it and you put a comedic twist on it. But like that's real talk. Like you don't want to go bragging about the things that are like a baseline level of service, you
Yeah,
know?
like I
So
answer my emails. Like I should
yeah,
hope so, you know?
I like that. So Heidi, to kind of my mind just kind of goes to like just concrete steps. Like I always want people, if they're investing their precious time listening to us right now, to leave with something like concrete they can do, take action on to kind of improve their business. So step one, and you correct me if you're seeing this differently, but I feel like a good starting point might be as objectively as you can to just kind of take inventory, like read through your site, right? And just kind of look and be like, I thought that was really colorful the way you put it. Like, could I copy this, text, paste it onto another planner's website and it's okay, it still works. Like that's an interesting sort of litmus test. Next, you're telling folks, now talk to some of your ideal clients, ideally that you've served. What if you haven't? Let me kind of go to, because I know somebody might be listening and say, Heidi, I've only done 3 weddings. I'm just kind of getting my bearings. What do you do if you've only got a few clients?
If you've had one person and
Okay.
you like them and you don't want to like never deal with someone like them again, talk to them because this is much more of an exercise in the quality of information you get back than the quantity. You don't need 100 people to tell you why they decided to book you. 1 to 3 people, that can be great. And the way I work with absolute newbies is I believe that it's better to start with a hypothesis and test it and see where it goes than to have something very vague because it's very hard to get booked when you're extremely vague. Because what we really want to do, and a good way to think about this, is like remove yourself from the category of wedding planner and put yourself into your own separate category. So you want to think about who do you want to be the go to person for? So I know in my neighborhood, I can think of 4 bakeries off the top of my head. They are not competing in the category of bakery. One of them is all about sandwiches and their breads. One of them is a French bakery. There are 2 donut shops, and they are different. One is like a classic donut shop, and one is like the craziest flavors you could possibly imagine. So they're not competing in bakery. They're competing in this very specific donut category. They've become the go-to person for the people who want that. So when you think, man, I really want a donut, you instantly think of them. And it's not like, which of these, tons of shops could I go to? So I really want people to think about who is that person that you want to be the go-to person for. And if you are brand new, I still think it's better to plant your flag and start building around what you think you want because you can always change that in the future.
I love that. So, one way or another, you've got a starting point, even if it's just starting with one client, like, and you're making it a hypothesis. I love that because it's scientific. That's what scientists do. They're like, this is my hypothesis. Now let's go do experiments to see if we can refute it. And once I kind of have my idea about, like, oh, this is the sort of intentionally crafted image perception that I want to build, what do I do with that? Is it like I go back through my website copy, I go through my social media? Just tell me, what do I do once I've kind of gotten that gold?
Yeah, so the first place I start is what's called above the fold on your website. It's where you don't have to scroll, it's just what loads. And from that screen, you have 5 seconds or less for someone to decide, I'm going to continue looking through this website or not. So it's a very crucial decision making point. And what I like working with people on is creating what I call their perfect fit statement, where you just right there clearly say, this is what you're all about. This is who you're for. This is what sets you apart. This takes a little work to figure out, but it helps you so much and it helps elevate you into that separate category because you're not saying, oh, I am a wedding planner. You're saying, I am a wedding planner for this specific type of person who has this specific type of problem. And someone is going to
Oh,
see this and be like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And then it becomes an apples to oranges comparison. And then, yes, we want to go through the rest of your website and make sure it aligns with that. But that initial snap decision of, do I even see what this company
yeah.
does? Who do they do it for? Do I want to continue? Data shows that you have about 5 seconds to make that impression.
I love that, Heidi. It's funny. I feel like people are listening right now, and I guarantee you there are some people, because I know I used to be this person, because like unlike you, I didn't come at this from like a natural, aptitude and interest in marketing. It took me years for the profundity of what you just said to sink in, for the impact of that to sink in, which is like we have so many instincts telling us, I want to be for everybody. I want to, and maybe that's part of why people have this sort of like homogenized content. Maybe they're like, you know what? Nobody's ever said no when you tell them that I respond to my emails and I care about you having your great day. Like whatever the platitudes and sea of sameness is, like you can't point and be like, well, I'm not going to book this person because they reply to emails. Like, but at the same time, you're not taking that step of really speaking specifically to somebody, like a targeted actual person, and that is just so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to just elaborate on that a little, because I really want people to kind of hear that. And sometimes people tell them the opposite. No, like don't alienate. I just couldn't be any more strongly in your camp of like have an avatar that you're speaking to.
Yeah. And I think it's really crucial because if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who is looking for a wedding planner, we all have like 37 tabs open at any given time, and they're clicking through and they're seeing the same message over and over and over and over, and they're seeing the same visuals over and over and over. And it all just blends in together. And actually, I have as we're recording this, I have a podcast episode coming out tomorrow with a social media engagement expert who just so happens to be engaged
Oh
herself.
wow. Oh
And
wow.
she had mentioned, like, oh my God, I can't tell them apart. She's like, I have all these tabs open. I have like 10
Wow.
planners and 10 photographers. And it's like, you get frozen because none of them are exactly what you're looking for. They're all repeating the same sorts of language. And that's what I want people to get away from, is so they can have someone land on that and say, like, yes, this is the perfect fit. I mean, I went through this when I did a rebrand about 2 years ago, and I was looking for a brand photographer here in San Diego where we have beautiful outdoor surroundings. I wanted someone who could work really well with bright colors
Mm-hmm.
indoors.
Mm-hmm.
Weirdly hard to find in San Diego because everything's like on the cliffs and beach
Right.
and light
Right.
and airy. And when I finally found that person, I was like, I saw her images, I saw what she was all about, And it was basically like, I'm willing to pay this woman pretty much whatever she wants in
Amazing.
order to get this, because she was solving that perfect problem. And the other 10 tabs of
Yeah.
photographers weren't, at least not for me.
So Heidi, I love that because we're kind of, I realized as we're talking, somebody could kind of be thinking like, well, what does it look like? What does it look like? Because we see so much of the homogenized, everybody saying the same thing that I think subconsciously we're like, that's just what a website looks like. It has this sort of like nice sounding, but still a little stale and not grabbing in and, really latching onto people's hearts kind of copy. Can you freestyle a little bit here and just kind of paint for me the picture of it could be from a planner that it could just be you kind of conjuring this up. I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. I realize that, but like, can you just paint a very rough sort of picture of what it would look like to have a wedding planner site that does speak out boldly to a specific
So
person?
I am pulling one up now of a planner that I worked with. And when you land on her website, you see 3 single line messages.
Okay.
We aren't, and in the background, there's an image of, it looks like this is a wedding, cliffside in maybe Greece or Italy. We aren't your average wedding planner. We plan and design untraditional destination weddings.
Mm.
Challenge tradition, embrace your uniqueness, have zero regrets.
Oh, I love that.
So
Yeah.
immediately,
Yeah.
it's you or it's not you. And either
Yeah.
way, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's funny because as we're talking about authenticity and being your true self and all of that, that's one aspect of distinction, right? Like if you're somebody, for whom like your faith is just of central and driving importance, having the sort of courage to lean into that and to put that, if you're a dog person, whatever it is that's giving people insight into you. But the other thing is kind of like what you're saying, with the photographer, like, do you do bright colors indoors? Like, do you do destination weddings for like, these are things that are like, this is the service that I provide. And it's not just a cookie cutter, like, blending into the sea of sameness
Yep.
service. So
So
it's
for
kind of like,
her, it's untraditional
yeah,
destination weddings.
yeah, I
That's her
love that.
thing.
Yeah, okay.
So you need to make that super clear. And maybe that's not your thing, but what
Right.
is the thing, A, that you want to do, but B, that your clients come to you for? Because we have to keep in
Mm.
mind that all businesses solve problems. And if you don't understand the problem that your client wants you to solve, it's going to miss the mark.
And what do you do, Heidi, here? Just because, like, I can kind of hear my listeners thinking. I've been doing this, for years. Like, what do you do, Heidi, if somebody's probably sitting and saying, "Well, that's fine, okay, if you do, destination weddings, this kind of narrow thing," but they may be saying, "But mine doesn't seem so narrow, Heidi. Like, I'm in, XYZ city, and I do weddings, like, how do I refine that and make it more specific, and how far down can I and should I niche, like, well, what are your thoughts on that?"
It's a good question. So really you want to look at what people are telling you. Why did they
Right.
choose you? Because they are going to see things about you that you just are not going to see
Right.
about yourself. So you can focus on something like untraditional destination weddings. You can focus on an aesthetic, like I
Mhm.
mentioned, that brand photographer working with a lot of bright colors. You can focus on a person and that person's particular problem. You want a multicultural wedding that doesn't feel exactly like all of your friends and family. It's
Yeah.
just figuring out, like, what is the problem? What is the problem that we're
Right.
solving? And
Right.
we don't think about that.
As a wedding planner, you know how important it is to create detailed wedding day timelines for your events. But creating your timelines can be a tedious and time-consuming job. Until now. Because Timeline Genius lets you create beautiful, detailed wedding day timelines with ease. And it keeps everything you need on the wedding day in one central place. Here's how it works. First, Timeline Genius saves all your clients, vendors, and venues in your Rolodex, so you don't lose time looking for their information. And when you're ready to create a new timeline, you simply enter the key information for your wedding. Click a button, and voila! Timeline Genius magically gives you a customized timeline for your event, where all the details are laid out and the times are calculated for you. From there, you can easily edit your timeline by adding or deleting items, inserting images, changing font styles, and customizing everything to your liking. You can also instantly shift the times for as many items as you want. And when it comes to your clients and vendors, Timeline Genius lets you give them the highest level of service. You can send them tailored timelines, showing only the items they're involved in. And you can collaborate by inviting them to a mobile-friendly, web-based version of the timeline. You can even set text message reminders to automatically go out on the wedding day. And once you've completed your perfect timeline, you can download it or email it out as a beautifully styled PDF. And that's Timeline Genius, a smart software that will help take your wedding planning to the next level. Start your free trial today.
Right. Yeah. So it really comes back to this notion of talking to your clients. Like, there is a reason why they hired you. Like,
Yes.
if you have even one client, like, there's a reason they had other options, right? Like, everybody that's ever worked with you had other people that they could have hired to do the job you did. And your job now is to figure out, like, why? What's the consistent through line across your clients for, like, what drew them to you? What made them hire you? Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
And to answer your question about like how far,
Yeah.
I mean, it's less limiting than people think. So there's an officiant that I work with, and her target is first generation from a Hispanic culture, raised Catholic. They themselves are not
Oof.
super religious, so more like culturally
Yeah.
Catholic, but
Mm.
you know, we need to design a ceremony that incorporates mom and dad and grandparents and family. So she is very well booked with those people, but she's also attracting people from other cultures that are experiencing the same problem. You know, people who are more culturally Jewish, people who are culturally Muslim that are
Yes.
struggling. The problem is I don't know how to blend the fact that I am more like spiritual and my parents and my family are like quite religious into a ceremony.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Heidi. I feel like too, again, just drawing from my own experience, I feel like, first of all, what I usually hear people say is like niche down till it hurts, meaning you're going to be scared. Like, it's so specific there aren't, but there's billions of people. Like, and obviously you need to be mindful of your market. If you're in a small town with 20,000 people, like, that's probably different than it, but most of us aren't in towns that have a population of 20,000. And I think the tendency, and you can tell me if you see this differently, psychologically, the tendency is for us to have a fear that we've gone too specific, when in reality, we probably would benefit from going even more in that laser-like specific direction. The other thing that you touched on here that I want to just lift up that's really important, I think, is even when you niche down, it doesn't actually mean that you're never going to get people that are not bullseye dead center for the avatar you crafted. Again, I'll use Timeline Genius as an example. It took me years to have the courage to say, our avatar is wedding planners. Why? Because I know DJs use our site and they love it. Photographers use our site and they love it. Venue owners use our site and I love it. But what we needed, but if you're trying to speak to all, those are all really different people. Like, it's really hard to speak perfectly to each of those people. In fact, you can't really. But even when we narrowed in on, okay, no, we want our messaging, we want to, like, wedding planners we know are the ones that are doing backflips, but we're still attracting those other people. So I just mentioned that so people hopefully don't get sidetracked by that fear of like, wait, I heard what Heidi said, but I don't want to be that specific because I'm going to alienate other people that want to give me money.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because if you're too vague, nobody wants to give you money because they don't understand how you're different, which gets into a whole other issue. But what I find is that when you do get specific and you do get clear of who do you want to be the go-to person for and what's the problem that they want solved. You
Yeah.
become like a lighthouse for those people. Like they will come from every which corner of the world
Yeah.
to work with you. They will adjust their wedding dates. Like they want to work not with a planner, they want to work with you.
I love that. And again, it's like your photographer example. I thought that was brilliant. And you just said the magic word, clarity. Like clarity. When you have not just like a vague, nice and professional, lofty sounding words and prose on your website, when you have like a clear picture that you're presenting, people can digest that also. Cause like you said, we've only got a few seconds to like get in there and
Yeah. And it's
connect.
like, what I need to know what box to put you into. Like in our brains, that's how we
Yeah.
look at things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we put ourselves in the position of a couple that's doing their research and the box that everyone is going into is wedding planner, wedding planner, wedding planner, wedding planner, and then it's wedding planner that's the perfect fit for me, well, that's a different box. And that allows them to see, which is why you want to have a statement front and center that's like, thing you do for person you do it for, or something like that.
I love it, Heidi. I have an open ended and I think really cool direction that I want to kind of take this in. Before I do, I just want to give a quick shout out to Timeline Genius. If folks are listening, especially, I'm going to be brave here and practice what we're preaching. If you are a wedding planner, especially more narrowly and specifically than that, if you're doing 15 or more events a year. That's really like, and again, we have planners using our site that are new, that are just doing their first wedding, and all the way to people that are doing over 100. But like, really, once you're doing 15 or 20 plus events a year, then your timelines are of paramount importance, meaning you're putting a lot of time into them just because you're doing a lot more of them. And if that's you, and if you are a full time planner, especially, because then I find that's our avatar, Heidi. People that are doing wedding planning full time, that are willing to invest in the tools that will allow them to thrive, to work more efficiently, and just as importantly, to look more professional and better organized in the eyes of their vendors, their clients, etc. If that is you, do not pass go. Go to timelinegenius.com. Check out the teaser video. We have the world's best. Don't get it twisted. You may see timelines advertised in other places, and you can do timelines in Google Docs, and probably you can do a timeline with a chisel and a stone tablet. But make no mistake about it, Timeline Genius is the best way to create, collaborate on, and execute your day of timelines. And we just rolled out a checklist feature set, so you can actually also do the multi-month sort of planning for your event. So timelinegenius.com, check it out. Now, having said that, Heidi, where my mind was going as we were talking is sometimes I have on our show planners or, other wedding pros who are, they're running exciting businesses, they're doing things. But what I love about talking to you is you're looking at the forest, right? You're not just kind of heads down working on your own planning company. You are seeing across the country trends, different people. And based on that, from what you're seeing, Heidi, and I'm talking very, I guess let's think more narrowly over the last 12 months, because I know we've been on here, we've talked over the years a lot about a lot of different things. Kind of put your goggles on and look back over the last 12 months and tell me, for the people that you've seen in our industry, especially the planners that are just crushing it, right? That are making the money they want to make. They're not worried about the bookings because the bookings are flowing and they've got the systems and the workflows. So they're not like with their hair on fire. I mean, everybody's stressed, but like these are the people who, as best anybody can, they have the reins on their business. What is the secret? What's the thing that you're seeing those people do that maybe the rest of us are not doing?
That's a very good question. Um, I
And there will
think,
be a lot of things. Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, a big part of it that I've definitely noticed is not being precious and not being overly attached to really, I want to say anything. but many things in your business. Like if you are very precious about the fact that you don't provide any indication of pricing and that's no longer working for you, it's time to stop being precious about that. It's like a willingness to adapt, because we are at a point where we're starting to see more people from Gen Z. It's still bulk millennials, but we're starting to see Gen Z, which has an even further importance that they put on transparency and needing to build trust. So I'm seeing a lot of people need to shift to not make their pricing cloak and dagger, like we're going to dance around it and you're not going to have any idea until you do XYZ sort of thing. So I guess the bigger thing there is not being precious about any particular thing. If it's not working any longer, like that example, if you're getting fewer inquiries because this generation is very, very big on price transparency, okay, then we have to change it. What I don't see those people who are really successful doing is blaming the potential client for that, but realizing that they themselves need to pivot and adjust in order to serve that client.
I
So
love
that's a
that,
big
Heidi. I love that. And it's funny. I could not help. I literally, like sometimes like your mind will flash back to like something that like a teacher told you. Like, I don't know why. My mind is going back to my 11th grade American lit teacher. She had a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that she just loved, where he said, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." Meaning, like, you've got some way of doing it. And I see it the same thing with timelines. People are like, I've been doing timelines a certain way and vendors already love it. And that's that. I'm like, once you kind of close off your channels to there potentially being a way that is better for your business than what you're currently doing, that's exactly what you're doing. You're closing off channels for potential growth. And it could be that maybe your way was fine 5 years ago, but maybe now you're serving a different clientele. The market has shifted. What do people do, Heidi, like just to kind of go a little, one layer deeper to kind of peel the onion back? What is the thing from a personality standpoint or from just sort of a value or perspective standpoint that makes, in your opinion, some wedding pros more nimble than others? Like, what's the underlying thing that you think is keeping somebody like, nope, this is the way I've always done it, and by golly, like, this is the way it is? Like, what do you think drives that in our industry?
I love that question. I think some people view change as proof that they were wrong about something
Hmm.
and they're not okay with that. I think if you can adopt a mindset of it's always going to change, it's going to constantly be changing, and that's what you should expect. And that change isn't just like this annoying thing that's going to happen, it's going to make things progressively easier and better for you. You're going to have a much better time. But I think some people take it kind of personally, like it's a judgment on them that something that they've been doing is no longer working.
I'm going to be edgy here, Heidi, and you tell me, you just shoot me down if this doesn't resonate with you. But I feel like I'm just going to piggyback and then go a few steps further. I think you're right. I feel like maybe as I reflect in real time here, I feel like there can be like an ego in our industry. And I'm saying that's edgy because like I don't want to offend anybody, but our job here today is to be as helpful as possible. And sometimes calling things the way they are like can be uncomfortable, but still helpful. I feel like what can happen sometimes, and I don't know. I mean, you give coaching, right? Like I see people that have the attitude of I already know what I'm doing, right? Like I've been doing this for insert block of time and I don't need any coaching. Like I've got this figured out, right? Like, and I almost feel like it's understandable in a sense because like you're doing this thing, you're not necessarily as a planner say always getting the props that you deserve for the expertise and just all the magic that you bring. There's nobody like always telling you, good job. Wow, what an amazing professional you are in the world. Like I want to just give like every dang planner, like you're amazing. I tell that to my wife. I'm like, I know there are these DIY couple. I'm like, you have no idea how much a good planner brings to the table that a DIY, but there's almost this kind of like ego thing. And it's like, I want to know I want to have it be the case that I know what's up. I don't know. Does that resonate with you? Do you ever see that? And don't let me drag you out into the dicey waters with me, but like, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think part of it's like I've already gotten to this level.
Right.
So
Let me
what
clean.
do I have
Yeah.
to learn? And it's funny
Yeah.
because people ask me all the time, like, in your membership, do you work with, is it primarily newbies? Is it primarily
Right.
people who have been in business 3 to 5 years? I have newbies. I have people who've been in business 5, 10, 20, 30 years
Yeah.
because things are always changing. And your marketing that you did 30 years ago is going to be very different than the marketing you do today.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important to have that perspective that you just talked about. Like you have to be willing to change, even if you were right 5 years ago, even if you were spot on right and it was the optimal practice. The whole game is constantly changing. You know, we have to be ready to change it in response to it.
Yeah. And it's just slight shifts usually, but I think if you can take the position that it is a continual and ongoing evolution, you're going to have a better time.
What's the origin of your name? I love the word evolve. I feel like that's what like all of life is constantly doing from the time that we were like in the primordial soup, you know, single cell organism to now, like everything is evolving. Like that's what's driving all of creation. Like for you, where'd your company name come from? Like
It
I've
came
always,
from exactly this, like
yeah,
that it isn't just like I build a company and then I'm done, it's that
yeah,
it has to be continually evolving and changing and improving for you and giving you better work-life balance, and that it you are in a state of constant evolution, and you shouldn't beat up on yourself because it's not like done, because I mean, when things are done, you're typically dead. So it's
yeah,
kind of a good thing.
yeah. No, that's beautiful. I love that, Heidi. Well, you've been on our podcast before, so you probably know what's coming as we kind of wind things down. And I'm definitely going to give people, I want to let people know how to connect with you and all of that. But before I do, there's one question that I always ask our guests, and that is if you could give one piece of advice to people listening right now, Heidi, that would be as helpful as like help them as much as possible in building their wedding planning business. It can be on the personal side or the pure business side, anything. Like what would you say?
Mm. So I'm kind of torn between put yourself in your own category, which we've talked about.
Hmm.
The other thing I'm torn between is separate the CEO version of you and the worker version of you.
Okay.
And
Hello.
this makes your life infinitely easier.
Okay.
So asking these questions of your past clients, figuring out who you want to be the go-to person for. These are CEO tasks. That's strategy. You need to think about it. You need to work on it. And what I see a lot of people struggle with is they try to be CEO and worker bee at the same time, and it gets really messy.
Yeah.
So what I would encourage you to do is make as many decisions as possible when you are in CEO mode and plan for worker you. So that, as I was telling one of my members the other day when she was working on getting really specific with her marketing plan, I want you to be able to show up on a Thursday morning and you're sick and you're hungover and you still know exactly what you need to do. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to think about it. And I think we make it so hard for ourselves because we're trying to like invent everything in the moment. But if you can separate some CEO time for yourself where this is your time to like make the decisions and plan out, what you're doing. Like what I'm doing today was planned by the me of the past. It's not being planned by the me of today because that wastes a ton of time.
Yeah.
That is going to help you a lot.
I love that, Heidi. And is that kind of the practical way to apply it, that you literally carve out some time on your schedule in regular intervals to go into CEO mode and to do the planning and the decision making?
Yeah, I recommend people do it on a weekly basis. It could take you an hour, it could take you a couple hours, where you are making decisions about what you're doing for the next whatever period of time, whether you're planning for the next 90 days or you're planning for the next week, so that you know that you're spending your time intentionally and it's going to things that actually matter and not stuff that just got onto your calendar and you feel like, obligated to do.
This is totally random. I'm going to ask you one more question here, Heidi, but it's funny. I wanted to just kind of tell people, my thought train was initially, I'm just grateful every time we get to talk. I'm grateful for the information that you put out and the help that you're giving people. And then my next thought was, why? Because it's so hard, and I hope that people know, like, as much as I'll sit up here trying to earnestly share the learnings from my own, decades long career as an entrepreneur and giving the best that I can, but like, make no mistake, like it's a constant battle for me too, to evolve and to like, and then that led me to this last sort of thought that I'd love your opinion on. A lot of these abundance sort of mindset folks would say, don't tell yourself the business is hard. Like that is not a belief that like fosters your growth. Like don't carry that. But like, I mean, this is a little random, but like, how do you kind of because like it is hard, dang it. Like it for me, nothing's ever just come like, oh, whoosh, that's easy. Like, how do you kind of reconcile that sort of healthy sort of belief that like not telling yourself it's hard, but knowing that it kind of is? I don't know. Do you have a view on that? Does that?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good point that like,
Have you heard people say that though? Like
yeah.
the mindset of like, it's not hard, money
Yeah.
comes to, like, like, and I
Yeah.
think it's real valid. Like that's really powerful stuff. But at the same time, like it kind of is really hard. Like, I don't know, like,
Yeah. It's like, I think it's probably good to tell yourself that it can be easier
mm-hmm.
and to look for opportunities to make it easier. But sometimes it's hard and that's okay.
Yeah,
Like, don't judge yourself for it.
yeah, yeah.
But anytime I get into a position like that, I didn't even really realize that I did this, but I basically give myself like a very small window to be like grumpy about it. And then I'm like, okay, now it's time to go make it so that this doesn't happen again, or to make it easier for myself, or to, come up with a solution. Cause that's what makes me feel better, is knowing that I fixed it, like I addressed it. And now this hopefully will not continue to be an issue in the future.
You're doing something that reminds me of, I think his name is Hal Elrod. He wrote a book called The Miracle Equation. It's his extraordinary life. He basically had a car crash, almost died, and then subsequently got this really rare strain of cancer that has this really high like mortality rate. And he beat that. And he's around to tell the story. And he had something that he called the 5 minute rule, where if something like devastating happens, he's like, I give myself 5 minutes to just be grumpy as hell. And he's like, I had practiced this rule. He got it from a coach. He's like, I had practiced it for years at the time when I had my accident. And, I had this, it was like, it's almost like if you haven't read the book, it's almost like, nah, I'm calling BS. But like, actually, when you read the book, you're like, no, this dude's like, he actually lives this. But he's like in the hospital. The doctors were like, I think your son's in denial because he's acting like everything's cool. But he did exactly what you said, Heidi. He's like, I gave myself my window of time. I griped and moaned. And then I realized that's not going to serve me. Like, it's not
Yeah.
going to change anything. If anything, it's going to militate against my progress toward walking again, So I just think that's a really beautiful message that kind of leave people with, even when it's hard. You can
Yeah. And
do
I
well.
think having a mindset of like, I can figure this out. I can figure anything out. Anything that comes to me, I can figure it out. Doesn't mean it's going to be fun. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I can figure it out and I'll be okay.
I love that, Heidi. Well, for those that are in the trenches, and which is pretty much everybody listening to us right now, if they want a little bit more help than we're able to give in the narrow constraints of a 1 hour podcast interview, how can they reach out to you, Heidi? How can people and tell people about the service offerings that you have?
Yeah. So first up, I want to tell you, I've mentioned this challenge around standing out that I've run. I've put it into an evergreen model so you can go through it on your own. You can, still get some support from me. And I'll give you the link to that. You can grab that for yourself at evolveyourweddingbusiness.com/standout. And then it'll take you through like the nitty gritty of all of these individual steps and give us the ability to kind of work through them a little bit together. The main way I work with people is in my membership, which is called the Wedding Business Collective. And it's really for wedding professionals who want a roadmap to be able to book more of the weddings that they really want with the people that they want, but also build a business that gives them freedom and flexibility. It is very much a non-hustle zone. Sometimes you got to do it, but we are aiming for the baseline to be very doable and to fit around your life. So you can learn more about that as well as find my podcast and everything over at my website, which is evolveyourweddingbusiness.com.
Heidi, that is awesome. And I encourage folks to go and to soak up the information, inspiration, education that you're offering. And on behalf of our Timeline Genius community and all of our Wedding Industry Insider podcast listeners, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this interview. We really appreciate your information and what you do in the industry.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.